Good morning. We're learning as this was for Refuah Shlema Filana Chaya Basar. We finally found out the story about it. And Baruch Hashem for Meir Ben Cyril Peril, he stabilized a little bit overnight. Last night I was just very on edge because as we were in the car on the way there, they told us that the family had gathered by him again. Like my cousin flew in from Toronto. It was they were very concerned last night. Baruch Hashem, he made it through the night, I think. So we're on the bottom of Gimel Amid Beis. We're continuing in our analysis of this machlokes. We had all the different shittas about how to understand our Mishnah. So the first shitta that we had said, I think it was the first shitta, no, the second shitta actually. The first one was on Tuma, was Rabbi Baravu, I think. But the second one was Abaye had said, Hakol Sheikh Afilu Kuti Kishral Oymed Al Gab. But Yoitzer Nichnas is, if he's Oymed Al Gabav, then it's not Chila. I had said, but if he's Yoitzer Nichnas, then b'diavad it's good. Rav had disagreed. He said we have a mission that says Lagabe when you Lagabe Yayin Esach that Yoitzer Nichnas is even Lechat Chila. So it doesn't have to be Oymed Al Gab, it just has to be Yoitzer Nichnas. Three lines in the bottom. Tanaraban, Shchitas Kuti Muteres. The Shchita of a Kusi is mutter, you're allowed to eat. Medva Mamrum Kshishra Lem Al Gava. When is that? When you get this standing over it? Avabo Motzer Sheshapat. But if he comes and finds a kuti that he already shechted, because I have a nice one like you take a piece of the meat that he had shechted and you give it back to the kusi. Like we said, the kusi is, we're going to see, the Gemara is going to discuss exactly what he is not, we're not worried about. But we know that we worry about him, that he's not careful about all the derabanan. One of all the things that are learned from drashas. The Chacham learn from drashas. They're not so chacham about. They're not so careful about. So one of those things is that the person is not allowed to cause someone else to sin. So that they're not so careful about. They understand that you have to take like literally a rock and put it in front of someone. But to give them bad advice or to cause them to sin, they don't believe is a problem. So by asking him to eat it, we'll see if he really didn't shech, and he says, I don't kill it, someone else eat it. It's not my problem. That's their own problem. Then, but he won't eat it himself because he is careful about eating kosher food.
We allow Chris to shech. Why can we allow Goy to shech? So Al Gab. She's not a Jew, right, Chris?
I don't know why. Let's see. Because we don't even let a cotton, right? A shayt of a cotton. I'm not Gab. Because like the kind of things you can do, like to press instead of slicing, all these things, or to wait a second, to pause. These are things that it's hard to see what the other person is doing. So I guess it's not safe. You can't, even if you're Ayman al-Gabav. Although we understood in the Mishnah that Ayman al-Gabav does work, so maybe it will work even for a guy. I'm not sure, right? Most of the pshatim that we had seen understood that Ayman al-Gabav was talking about a cotton. All those pirushim that we had said kasha, it has kashas. We ended up saying that by a cotton, Ayman al-Gabav works. So maybe in theory by a guy also it would work. If you think about it, it's not very practical. You have a shlach place where someone's shechting all day. That means you have to have someone standing there the whole time, watching what he's doing. You might as well do it already. Might as well have the yid do it. But maybe it could be it's good enough. I don't know. Kiyotze boy, the Bride continues. If you find in the hand of the kusi, he's holding a line of birds that he had already shechted. You cut the head of one of the birds and you give that to the kusi to eat. So Abaye daik miresha. Abaye is medayik from the first part, and Rav is medayik from the sefer. Abaye dayik meresha. 4 lines down in Dalet Amanal. Abaye dayik meresha. Time of the Yisrael emid al gabo. The reason why it had said Yisrael is emid al gabo when a kuti shechts, then it's good. Aval yoytzev v'nichnas loy. But yoytzev v'nichnas would not be good, which is what Abaye had originally suggested. Yoytzev v'nichnas is only b'diyev. Rav dayik mesefer. Time of the ba umatzah sheshachat. It's only b'diavad when you found that he shechted, but you weren't even there was no one around at all when he shechted. That's b'diavad. So the yukim of that brisa go both ways. Both you could one part is medayik like Abaye, one's like Rav. Well, Abaye kasha sefer. So what is Abaye going to do with the sefer that says if you found that that the kuti had shechted, then it's mutter only b'diavad. It's mashma that yotzev v'nichnas would be l'chatchila good. Amalach yotzev v'nichnas nami bo umatzah korile. He says there's no difference. Yotzev v'nichnas is the when it says bo umatzah, when you come and you find him, that means that someone's going in and out, and he finds. As the guy, the kuti knows that the yid is coming in and out, and it happens to be that he shechted it while the yid was out. But it has to be taka yotzev v'nichnas. Yotzev v'nichnas is b'diavad. Even yotzev v'nichnas is b'diavad, and that's what it's referring to when it says you came in and you found him. It was talking about when he was yotzev v'nichnas. But oimid al gabav is the only case of lechatchila. Well, the Rava kasha reisha. What does Rava do with the reisha? It said that if he was oimid al gabav, it's masha yoyt v'nichnas is b'diavad. Amalach yoyt v'nichnas nami ka'oimid al gabav dami. He says no, yoyt v'nichnas is like oimid al gabav. Yoyt boy. Yeah, Rava will understand that when it says yoyt oimid al gabav, when it says that he is that he. We said shchitas kutim miteres. She saw oimid al gabav. He means including ki yaitza. He includes that, and that also is yaitza v'nichnas. We continue with the second part of the brayso. He cuts off the head of one of the birds and you give it to the kusi. And if the kusi eats it, that means that you could eat all those birds that he was holding that he had shechted. Shapir. Maybe just that one bird that you gave him, that he shechted correctly. The others he hadn't. We're talking about where the yid has all of these birds. He takes them and he puts it underneath his cloak, and the kusi, does not know which one he was being given. So if he knows that he only shechted one of them, and he knows the other ones are not shechted properly, he's not worried about the yid because he's not worried about lifnei iver. But for himself, he's going to worry. So he doesn't know which one it is, so he's not going to eat it if any of them were no good. Dilma simna haviyov leibegave. Maybe when you pull out the bird, the kusi recognizes. He says, I know the one I didn't shech correctly was the yellow one, and this is the black one, so that's why I'm going to eat it. Amrashashia, the mesamsem le misamusi. He crushes the birds and he makes it that they're unrecognizable. So the kusi has no way to know if this was the kosher one, the one he had shechted properly. Maybe the kusi, how are you allowed to eat it? Because the kusi is eating it. Maybe he holds you don't need a shechita at all. So that's why he didn't shecht it, and he's eating it because he doesn't need shechita. So the 5 ways of parceling a shechita. Let's just remind ourselves. Shia is that he stops in the middle of the shechita. That parcels the shechita. Darsa is he pushes with the knife. He chops with the knife instead of slicing. Chalada is he punctures with the knife and then uses it to cut the simanim from the side. Hagrama, I think, is where he pushes. He does the shechita not on the part of the neck that you're allowed to do the shechita. He does it higher or lower. And ikor is, I believe, what is ikur? I always forget ikur. It's another way of cutting incorrectly. Um, tearing, right? That he pulls out instead of slicing, he pulls out the simon, like with the takes like a hook and he pulls it out or something like that. So all these things, miksivan, the Torah doesn't say all these requirements of shechita. The halacha l'meishmine, halacha l'meishmine. Even ela kivan the achziku bahu elamai. Since we know that they hold of shechita, and therefore the kusim hold of shechita. So the achziku they're muhsak, they follow our rules, the rules of shechita. So the same thing with gabi birds, since they hold of that there is requirements of how you could eat a bird. They hold once they hold of shechita, they hold that it also applies to birds as well. So this is this question of something that is not written in the Torah, like we said, like the shechita of an oil, or the rules of shechita of a behemoth. The Torah doesn't say, but we have halacha l'Moshe Sinai about how it works. That whether a kusi is expected or it can be machzik, we can assume that they follow those rules. Tanoi, it's a machlokes Tanoi. The Tanya, matzahs kuti muteres. The matzah made by a kuti, you're allowed to eat on Pesach. And not only are you allowed to eat it, it's not chametz, you could even yaitza your mitzvahs of eating matzah on Pesach. Rabbi Elazar said it's also he says it's also because they're not careful of the Kduke mitzvahs like a Yisrael. Let's see Rashi to see what exactly these things are referring to. We'll see the first thing. Motor la'oichle v'leichashin l'chametz Pesach. We're not worried about chametz. We all know, right? The l'shem matzah mitzvah. You have to eat matzah that's l'shem mitzvah. Someone who doesn't eat matzah on the first day is not yotze his mitzvah. Why, if it's mutter, why wouldn't it be yotze if it's kosher Pesach? So we said, she'ein bekiyin ein yodim l'shomer lahaftem ben shir l'sidik ben nechsiv upanav v'lo yechsiv upanav. There's all the rules of the matzah bakery, right? You have to know whether Sayer, you have to know whether it's whether there's leavening in it, whether it got fully baked, or if it's still rising. So maybe he says the kusim don't know all these rules, and they're going to allow it to become chametz. Finally, the last sheet is those, since they don't have 613 mitzvahs, it's 100 mitzvahs, they're even more machmer than we are in those mitzvahs they have. So therefore, you can use their matzah. Amar ma. So we're going to have to explain what exactly is the point of their machlokes. Matzkuti muteres v'adam yotze b'dei chavasa pesach. Pshita. Why do you have to tell me if it's muteres that you yotze b'dei chavasa? Why not? I might say they're not careful about shimur, like we said. Rashi says, "Mao de tema avagav the pshitulon the loy nichula hachmatz muteres b'achila." Even though it's not going to be chametz and you could eat it, miu loy b'kiyah b'had the boy lemevet shimur l'shem matzah shom mitzvah. They don't know what to do l'shem matzah mitzvah. We came to avad b'shimur loy nafkinam midei loy nafkinam ba. You can't be yaitzu with him. Either have a kimchenu b'tzeika shel evdi kechavim abayin lefneinu kodim she afa evdi kechavim. If you have a matzah of a guy that comes to us before the evdi kechavim baked it, but you shaloi hichmet, and we see that it wasn't chametz, the kaimel and the mutter will have kinbu. It's mutter to eat it because you see it's not chametz, you can't be yaitzu it. It's not. You can fill your stomach with it, but you have to eat a different matzah to be yaitzu yechiv mitzvah. So that's what you're missing. Kamashmala. So this is what is coming to tell you. The Tanakh is going to tell you. not only can you eat the matzah of a kusi, you could even be yaitza. They know the mitzvah of shimur. We're going to have to understand. The Gemara is going to have to explain what's the difference between the last Tana who had said that they're even more medak than us. It sounds like the same thing as the Tanakama. So we continue. Rabbi Lazar oiser lefisha ein bekim tekduke mitzvahs. Rabbi Lazar said it's also because they're not careful about the fine points of the mitzvah. Because they don't know this shimur is not the shei matzahs mitzvah. It means they're not going to be careful with all the different rules that we have in order to make sure that it doesn't become chametz. Shem Gamliel only call mitzvah shechzika kusim harba medakta b'yosem yisrael. Tanakama. How is that different than Tanakama, who says you could be yaitz the mitzvah with them, and he's also saying they're very medak with it. The difference is whether it has to be ksiva. That if it was ksiva, but that we don't know that they bedafka were careful about it. Tanakama saw kiven the ksiva avagav the zoyich zikuba. Since it's written, even though we don't know that they specifically are careful about it, but since the Torah writes it, so we can assume that they're going to do all of the details, including the including do it l'shem matzahs mitzvah. L'shem Gamliel savar achzik in, achzik loy. It depends on whether we know that they are particularly careful about it. If we know that it's a mitzvah that they take seriously, then we can use what they did. But if not, no. Right? It said the Reb Shimon Gamliel had said kol mitzvah shechziku b'kusim. It shouldn't say kol mitzvah shechziku b'kusim. He's saying that it doesn't have to be, even if it's ksiva, it still has to be shechziku. So he's not saying a chiddush that even something that's not, you would think is not good, since it's chziku by it's good. He's saying that you need just ksiva alone is not enough. You need chizuk as well. You need also that they're muchzuk to do it. So he's saying chizuk, the fact that they're muchzuk in it, is a second requirement. The Tanakhama says all you need is ksiva. He says no, you need ksiva and chizuk. So you shouldn't say kol mitzvah sechzikuba. You should say ilay yachzakin. If it was muchzuk, it's good. If not, not. Ella. So we say a different shot. So now we're finally getting back. We were saying that if you just have muchzuk, if that's enough, that's the machlokes. So now we're switching it around to say that that's what the machlokes of this price is. So Ella ikabenayu the loik siva, where there's no ksiva v'chzikuba. Tanakama sava kivin the loik siva avagav zikuba namila. If it's not written, even though it's just muchzuk, that's not enough. Shimon Gamliel is saying no. As long as it's muchzuk, that's enough. So this what we had said, like siva tanoi. Now we have a machlok. We see that machlokes. Gufa Amarav. Now we're going on to the next sheet. Amarav Yisrael Mumar Eichel Nevelis L'Teyav. This is the pshat of Rav that he had said. I'm sorry, it wasn't Rav. It was a different Tana before. What?
Rava.
It was Rava? No, Rava had said the sheet of Mumma Eichel L'Teyav. So you haven't bought it Sakim and Eisen like.
The Kusi, you mean? Who the Kusi was? Which Tana was the Kusi?
No, which was the Tana that said Mumar was a different Tana. He was Saimach on Rava's Shita. We had said Rava says this Shita.
Oh.
Like we had said, actually we had said this did end up being Rava's Shita himself. But we had said it b'shem someone else, and then we said Rava also holds like that. And Rava, when he was looking at Abai, was just saying L'shitasit Abai. Ravashi, right. This is Rav Ashi Shita that he bolstered with Rava's klal, and then we said, why can't we just say this is Rava Shita, since he holds that it could be talking about Mumar? And we said Einachanami that this is Rava Shita as well. When Rava was looking at Abaya, he was just saying L'shitas Abaya. You could say it different. Amara Yisrael, but this is his klal. Mumar Eichel Nevelis L'Teyav. If a yid is known that he eats nevelis, If he's hungry, he'll eat nevelas. He's not going to hold himself back. But it's only because of he's tempted by it. He doesn't have patience. But if he has an opportunity to eat kosher, he'll eat kosher. Boidik saken v'noisen loy, you can give him, as long as you check the knife and you give it to him and he shechs. So you can eat from a shchita. My timer, what's the reason? Keeping the ikeh teir v'isura, l'shavak teir v'achal isura. Like we said, he has to make sure, and when you do shchita, you have to make sure not to wait while you're doing it and not to chop instead of slicing and all the different rules that he has to follow. It doesn't cost him anything to do it right. And he's only a oichel nevelis l'teyavim, but if he has the opportunity, he'll want to get schusim. Like all the people, you see all kinds of people, they'll be not careful a whole year, and then Rosh Hashanah they'll show up, they'll do tshuva, say people want to do good, but it's hard for them. Right? We don't think people are not bad at heart. The Pintaliyid always wants to do mitzvahs, but the Sa'ar Shabisa, the Yetzer Hara trips them up. So you can, right? So, but you can eat the shchita. This is not thank you Hashem. This is halacha l'mais. Nami. If that's the case, why do we have to check the knife? Why do we assume he won't check? He'll get a kosher knife instead of non-kosher knife. So listen, as long as it's equal, all he has to do is slice instead of chop. He'll slice instead of chop because it doesn't cost him anything. It doesn't cost him any time. It's not really any more effort. He'll just do it right. But to go and get schlepped to get a good knife without a nick in it, that's a pain in the neck that he's not going to do. So we can't trust him on it. I'll bring a raya from a brisa to your din. If you have chametz of someone who's over avera after Pesach, that means he's an over avera to Rashi. She'ein mevaron chametz in Pesach when he have pseda. The guy, he does not get rid of his chametz. He keeps his chametz because he's over on Bal Yiro by Yemotze, and after Pesach he's left with Pesach. Mutar miyad, even though it's chametz she'aval about Pesach, a yid can go eat by him and eat from his chametz. Because what is this yid, this thank you Hashem yid going to do? It was too hard for him. He didn't get rid of his chametz. It's hard to get rid of chametz. He was going to have a half sip from it. But right after Pesach, he's sitting on, a bunch of scotch. He has a whole bottle of good scotch that he never did anything. He never sold it. He didn't do beer. He didn't do bittel. He just takes the bottle. He goes to the liquor store. He says, "Listen, you're a guy. I've got a bottle of Glenfiddich. I'll give you my bottle of Glenfiddich. You give me back another bottle of Glenfiddich, and you didn't lose anything. And now I have a kosher bottle that's not chametz shablo of Pesach. It's no real effort for him." Savrua. So l'chayr, you see that without any effort, they go ahead. People will avoid, even if they're chashed on that mitzvah, they'll try to avoid being over anymore if it's not enough. Savrua hamani Rabbi Yehudi da Amar chametz achar Pesach da'iraisa. We see we're assuming this is going according to Man da Amar the chametz she'aval over Pesach is da'iraisa. Uktanim, which is not the way we pass him. Uktanim v'shein machlifin. We say that we assume that he's going to switch it. You see that, like Rava, we don't assume even someone who's chashed on eating chametz on Pesach, he'll still, if he has the opportunity, he'll do a mitzvah. Mimai, Dilma Rav Shimon hidam chametz achar Pesach d'Rabbanan, v'chima kalina m'Rabbanan d'Raisa l'klina. Gemara says, how can you bring a raya from there? Maybe it's only because we hold that it's a d'Rabbanan. So it's not such a big chumrah. So we could assume in that case that he's going to be careful about it, but we wouldn't say that legabe shchita, which is a deraisa. It's like the Gemara, but having Amr of Shimon, miktani shani aimer echlipum nesha machlitim tani. We say he's for sure going to be machlit. The vade machlit. Umab deravan lo yishav gater v'achal yisur, but deraisa lekolshin. Gemara says, I'll say exactly the opposite. It is a good raya. If we are going to assume on just the derabanan that this yid who's not the best Jew is going to go to the effort, which we say it's not a real effort, but he's going to do it anyway to avoid the Isser. Certainly, he'll do it on a deraisa. Although, in my experience, I feel like many people would be much more machmer on not eating garlic on Pesach unless they peeled it or whatever those rules are. They'd be more machmer about that than about bearing down to an avodah zarah. So I don't know. I don't see like if someone's machmer on the rabbanon, then they'll for sure be machmer on the raisa. I'm not so sure that that's the case. So that's
the kusim.
right. So these kusim, they're not right.
Yeah,
They're taka. Right. They're more the raisa people. So come on, lem misayeli. I'll bring you another raya to Rav's shita. Hakol sheichtin vafilu kusi vafilu oral. Anyone could shecht, even a kusi, and even oral, even someone who didn't get a mila. Every year is mechuyev to get a mila, and he's mechuyev if his parent didn't do so when he's old enough, he has to arrange to get a mila himself. Vafilu Yisrael mummer, and even Yisrael who's a mummer. Hi oral heichida. So what's the case of an oral? If we're talking about someone who couldn't get a mila because it was sakana, his brother died from a mila, therefore he's excused. He's not. What's the chiddush to say that his shechita is good? He didn't do anything wrong. Of course, his shechita is good. There's no requirement that you have to be a mole in order to shech. It must be that he did something wrong. Ela pshita mumul areus. We're talking about someone who didn't get a mila, and he refuses to get an amila. It's too hard for him. Because someone who's a mumma for one din doesn't mean he's a mumma for all the dinim. So therefore, when he shechts, we trust the shechit. But the Bryce itself said a mumma. Hi mum hechidam imul davar echad ledavar acher. If we're talking about where he's a mummer for some others, not legabi eating treats, he's a mummer legabi wearing tzitzis, or he doesn't put on tefillin. So that's a mummer. That's the same thing as a mummer larelis that was saying someone he's not makbid on mila. We trust the shechita. So if the mummer ledavar acher, if he's not talking about the mummer lenevela to shechita, then that's the same thing as mummer larelis. Allah mummer la'oised davar. We're talking about someone who's a mummer on that thing, meaning a mummer legabe shechita. Okay, the Rava. So it's a raya to Rava. Maybe someone who's a mumma legabe nevela, we don't know like Rava, and you can't trust the shechita. My time, because since he already is makel on that isser, the isser of eating trapus, so he's not going to. We can't trust him legabe shechita. Other things you could trust him, but not on that. Elamai. I could tell you that when we say mummer over there, if he's mummer in that thing, he's not going to be trusted. Not like Rav. When it says a mummer, we trust him. That's talking about someone who's a mummer. So it's not like the case of Ara. We're saying you will two chiddush. First of all, he's a mummer ledavar acher. You trust the shechita. Then secondly, we're saying even if he's a mummer lavayis we trust the shechita. Ukter Rav Anan, Amar Rav Anan, Amar Shmuel. Yisrael mummer lavayis gechavim mutar le'echel m'shritasa. Even though one might think that avodas gechavim is so serious that you can't trust the shechita, that's obviously a whole different level of someone who's doing something wrong. He's worshiping other gods. You think that knocks him out altogether. You can't trust him for anything. No, even that you mutalech mishutas. So it's not a raya to Rav. Gufa Amar Rav Amar Shmuel. This din that we just said that someone who's a mumalava is kichavim, you can eat a shechita. Yisrael mumalava is kichavim, mutar lechem shitasu. Shechem matzinu b'Yoshafat melech Yehuda. Shenan mesudas acha. Yoshafat was a king, a melech who was a tzaddik, and he was at the time of Achav. Achav and Yizavel were two terrible rishayim. But Yoshafat joined with them for a milchama, and he was first enticed into doing so. He was convinced to do this by Achav making a suda for him. He shechted many tzainu bakar for Yoshafat to convince him to join in an alliance with him, and for the entire group that was with Yoshafat the tzaddik. I used to say, and he convinced him to go with him to join him in a war in Ramois Gilad. So you see that Yoshafat, who was a tzaddik, ate from the food that Achav, who was a Rasha, shechted for him. And Achav specifically was Ovid Avos Gechavim. fact, the Gemara of a Dilma Mizbuk Zavach Mechaloyachal. How do you know that Yeshaphat ate? Maybe Achav shechted and Yeshaphat sat down, but like we often do, if you ever have to sit down at a meeting in a restaurant, you just don't eat. So it says that he convinced him, he enticed him. So enticing was through the food. So in fact, the Gemara Dilma Dvarim in Hasasa, maybe he just convinced him by talking to him, but he didn't ply him with food to get him to join him. So Gemara Hasasa B'Dvarim, V'Dilma B'Dvarim, so Gemara Ein Hasasa B'Dvarim. You can't convince someone. You have to sit down. You have to open up the expense account to get someone to sign up with you. You can't convince someone just by talking. Correct? You have to take them at least to a ball game. It says the pasuk says Lagabi, someone who convinces someone to be Oved Avodah Zarah. It says Yasischa. It doesn't say anything about it. So that's also talking about with eating and drinking. Taka needs some bolstering. Boy Lavloi. This is talking about the Rebbeinu Shalom by Iyah. The interesting part of Yom Hashem ala Satan. The Rebbeinu Shalom said to the Satan. I never knew that we used the word Satan. Talk about the Satan in Tanakh. Hashem talibcha el avdei Iyah. The Rebbeinu Shalom said to the Satan, why are you making problems with my servant Iyah? Ki ein kamayu ba'aretz ish tam v'yasher yareli kim v'samei ra. He's a person who's good in every way. But then in Machzeb to Masa, he's a Tamim. But to say any boy Lavalachinam, and you're trying to convince me, you the Satan are trying to convince me, the Rebbeinu Shalom, to swallow him for no reason. It's like the Maris, you see that was the Satan was trying to convince the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't eat and drink. And you see, we call it he was enticed without food and drink. So what are you talking about? The Rebbeinu Shalom is obviously different. He doesn't need food and drink. But a human being needs food and drink to be enticed. Maybe a shopper just drank, but he didn't eat. Why is it that you can drink from his wine? When we talk about drink, we're talking about wine, but wine is a problem of yain. And how could you drink from the wine of this Ibn Aveira? It's going to be yain nesech. So the Gemara, no, the same way he could eat, drink, so then you see he could eat. The shtia was stam yenim. It wasn't yain nesach. He didn't see that they were being ovid with it. It was just stam yenim. So that's just a chashash with the rabban. Adayin lo nesach. Adayin lo nesach stam yenim shalav dekachavim. Aval achila emelach mumla v'zichavim having mumla chala Torah kula. Maybe mumla achila is considered mumla chala Torah kula. Ibai say malav orcha de malka mashtia beloy michla. What else you could say? There's no such thing that you come to the melech and you just drink and you don't eat. That's very insulting. It says it says that he shechted and it says that he enticed him. So the enticing was with the food, not just with drink. What time is it? Okay, so let's just quickly. One of the servants of Achav, this Rasha, was Avadia the Navi. Maybe he was the slaughterer for Achav. That's why Yeshua was able to eat it, because he knew that the tzaddik was shechting. So Avadia have a suffix. Avadia would not have been able to do Leroy for such a large amount of people. V'dilma shivas alafim zavuach t'chsev b'shata b'Yisrael shivas alachim kalabrachim ashaloi karo lebal. Maybe it was from the 7,000 Yidden that were with Achav that did not bend their knee for the Avodah Zarah. These people didn't show up to the Suda because they were scared of Izavel. She was going to chase them down and kill them. They were staying far away. So they couldn't have been the ones who shot. Maybe some of the servants of Achav were tackled good. Pasuk says that whoever is part of the followers of Russia, they themselves are also going to be shot. The deal with Gavi the Yoshavet Nami lo have a malu, lo have a malu zivuach Gavri the Achav. The Dilma Gavri de Yeshafet Nami Lehava Malu. Maybe Yeshafet himself was a tzaddik, but his followers were not tzaddikim, and therefore they ate. So Yeshafet ate from Revaja, and everyone Zavur Gavri the Achav Ochel Gavri de Yeshafet Zavur Chavaja Ochel. Yeshafet ate what Avaja ate, and the followers of Yeshafet who were not so chashav as him, they ate from Achav's followers. So just like we said, the followers of a Rasha or Rishayim, the followers of Yeshafet who was a tzaddik, they were also tzaddik. The Dilma Zavur Gavri the Achav Achal, Achav Gavri Zavur Gavri the Yeshafet Achal, Yeshafet Gavri Leha V'Mafli Noshinei. Okay, we'll stop over here because I don't remember exactly. It's too late, and I can't figure out the words right now.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.